Hello. All right. I want to make sure that I am live here on YouTube. I am testing out a new camera. If you're watching any of my videos, I got a new camera and a new setup. So here we are. Hopefully, you can see and you can hear me. I'm excited about this live today because I want to share with you 5 things that I would absolutely do differently if I was building my brand from scratch and from scratch today in 2024. And I think will carry over very easily into 2025 as well, because I know we don't want to admit it, but it's happening in a few months, my friends. Like 2025 is going to be here in no freaking time. So this is a trend that I keep seeing on TikTok and on Instagram, where people are just talking about, 5 things that they would do different, or things that they would do different, exactly what they would do if they were starting their business over. And I wanted to share those in my favorite format, which is video format. So as always, if you have any questions throughout the live, or you want me to expand on anything, just pop it in the chat. I can see you down here. But I'm just going to get right into the goods, because I have got an academy call in just an hour that I need to get myself ready to rock and roll for. So I went ahead and jotted down some notes right here on my handy dandy phone, and I wanted to just share those with you today. So the first thing that I would absolutely do if I was starting over from scratch is I would give myself a limit of 2 weeks to build my brand. Now, I know that that might seem a little stressful to you, 2 weeks to build your entire brand, but there's a reason that I say this today. Number one, when I started my business back in 2016, many of you know my story. I'm a brand strategist now. And that's because when I started my business, the whole branding process was overwhelming, and I had no idea what I was doing. And it took incredibly too long to actually put my brand out into the world. I sat on it for so long, just like going through all of the things and trying to figure it out and second guessing myself, that by the time I put it out in the world, I realized that what I had created didn't make a lot of sense. And so that's why I highly recommend that my clients, anyone that goes through my Build a Better Brand method, which is my signature branding process, that they give themselves a 2 week deadline. Like, put it on the calendar. 2 weeks from today, my brand is ready to put out into the world. Now, what I mean by that is not that your website is done. I would actually tack on another 2 weeks for that. So, all in, I would say 1 month, your brand and your website is ready to rock and roll. But the reason that I say 2 weeks is, one, I've tested this. I've had hundreds and hundreds of clients work through my branding process. And the clients that are willing to accept the 2 week challenge always say that, one, it was a lot easier than they thought it was going to be, because it's a very simple process to follow. And number two, by doing that work quickly, let's say, or quicker than most people, they were able to start creating content and start marketing with the information that they had. And through the marketing, through the content creation, they were then able to figure out where the gaps were in their brand. And this is the part that I think a lot of people get mixed up, is they think, okay, if I build my brand foundation, yes, the foundation is very important, but if I build my brand foundation, then it's done. I don't revisit that. I don't have to change anything. It's just solid. And then I move on from there. And that's not true, because you're going to learn so much about your voice, about your messages, about certain aspects of your emotional branding, maybe even certain pieces of the aesthetics of your brand, your ideal customer, by actually putting your content out into the world. And so, my biggest recommendation for anyone who is, let's say, you're starting from scratch, or you are still sitting in the branding process, because so many people are sitting in the branding process for weeks, months, even years. I have people who come to me who say, I've been wanting to launch my business for a year. I've been trying to brand for a year. Like, I get it. It is a process, but set yourself up for a 2 week deadline, because you're going to learn so much more by taking action than you ever will by just sitting there and playing it over and over and over in your head. Hi, Rochelle. I'm so excited that you're here. And so, again, I've tested this. If you aren't familiar with the Build a Better Brand method, it's what I teach here at Brand Mary. And it essentially means that you first start with your story, your authenticity. And I have a whole pre-work story section that helps my clients kind of dig deeper into who they are and how they want to show up in the world. I actually had a client who went through my branding course recently, sent me a message and said it was so eye-opening what they discovered about themselves and how they want to be showing up online, that they could not have done that prior to the questions that I asked them. Like, it's good stuff. And so it's all about figuring out who you are and building that solid pillar for your authenticity, which then will trickle into your niche and what you want to be known for, your expertise, and then moving into who you want to attract, your ideal customer. And with those first pieces, you can then design your messaging, right? And this is when we start getting into copywriting, content creation. Your messaging is really responsible for all of that stuff. Your messaging, in my mind, because it piggybacks off of ideal customer, is responsible for all of your marketing efforts. Without that piece of the brand, you can't start creating content, right? Like you won't have a roadmap to create content or share your message with the world. Then once you have those three pillars, and I always say it's like story, niche, ideal customer, messaging, you design your signature offer, and then you focus on the aesthetics and the emotional aspects. And that right there is the sweet spot for branding. And if you're paying attention to the pillars and my process for branding, you'll notice that we talked about your offer. Because then once you spend those 2 weeks doing that work and you start putting your content out there in whatever, medium that you're choosing, whatever platforms you're choosing, you then are going to have an offer to lead people back to. A lot of people think that the branding process is just like the logo and some of their copy and their pictures and those different things. So then there's another process they have to go through to think about their offer, and then another process to think about, their marketing. And I don't believe that that's the case. And again, like I said at the beginning of this video, because I see more of you are hopping on, you want to give yourself a deadline for 2 weeks to go through this process, figure all this out, having that solid messaging, and then put yourself into full marketing. Because getting stuck in the branding phase, it's like an endless loop, And again, this is why people come to me for private calls or join inside of the academy, because they're like, okay, I've been doing this on my own. I've been DIYing it. I've been trying this process, and I'm not moving to the next phase. Because that next phase, that marketing phase, that's everything. It's how you get your brand seen, because just having a brand isn't enough, right? Like, you could have the most amazing brand, as I tell people, the most amazing brand. But if nobody knows that it exists, then nobody knows that it exists and nobody can pay you. So don't get hung up on that phase. Again, if I were starting over from scratch, I would limit myself to 2 weeks getting my brand set up. Really, I would follow my own method, the Build a Better Brand method, because I know it can be done in 2 weeks, and then putting my content and everything out online. All right, so that's number one. As I mentioned, I have my phone with my notes in it from last night. I was watching Hocus Pocus, don't judge me, and writing notes on my phone. Okay, the second thing that I would do, and this plays a huge role in the marketing aspect of it, but I would think about my dream schedule, and I would design a business strategy that worked around that. Okay. And the emphasis that I would put on with my business strategy and like designing my business schedule would always be content first and foremost. So, what I mean by this is, if you've gone through any program, mine included, a big part of the visualization or the mindset piece of it is really like, okay, well, what do you want your dream day to look like? What do you want your dream schedule to look like? I love that exercise. I love visualizations. I think they're incredibly powerful, but very, very few times do people actually translate that into the business strategy. They designed this dream life. They write down like how they want their day to go, what they want their mornings to look like, their night, like how they want to spend their time, where they want to work, all of these different things. But then it like goes out the window when they're designing their schedule and when they're designing how they're going to actually get their brand seen and how they're going to market online. And so one of the things that I would do, because I messed this up too, honestly, I get that there is a period, especially if you are in the first year and maybe even 2 years of like intense hustle, because there are a lot of things you don't know that you're wanting to learn. So you have the learning aspect, then you have the implementation aspect, then you have the experimentation piece of it, and then you have the actual like delivering everything that you're selling, right? Whether it's a product or a service or a course or whatever that might look like. And so there is a lot of that with the scheduling. But what happens is that people are not saying, okay, this is my schedule. Let's say I really don't want to be spending a ton of time on social media. I want to be attracting clients, but social media isn't in the cards for me. I can't create content every single day. I want to be able to create content once a week. Let's say that's an example, right? That's setting you up for the proper marketing strategy for your business. It's telling you already, okay, maybe I should get into YouTube. Maybe I should focus on SEO. Maybe I shouldn't worry about social media right now because it's not mirroring the perfect schedule that I am putting in place. Because so many people are doing the visualization, but then they're not backing it up. They're not taking the action to actually support that. There is absolutely no reason why somebody who is just starting out or in those first few years cannot still honor their perfect schedule. It might not be like to a T exactly how you would want to spend your day. However, you could start taking the actions that allow that to actually happen. And a lot of that starts with how you schedule your business and the strategy that you're wanting to implement. So again, like I work with clients in a huge capacity, but one of the things that one-on-one clients usually come to me with is either, hey, my brand is effed and I need to fix my brand. Or the other one is my schedule is absolutely insane. I feel like I am barely keeping my head above water. I'm trying to be there for my family. I'm missing date nights. I feel like I'm working all the time in front of my kids, which I don't want to do. And the first thing that we do is we look at their schedule. We look at their personal schedule and what that looks like and where their requirements are, because a lot of those things can't change, right? There are certain things that can change, like, I don't know, getting groceries delivered or whatever those little tweaks are, or bulking some things together. But for the most part, the changes have to happen at the strategy level. They happen at the business level. And so this is so beneficial for anyone in business right now, whether you're just starting out or you've been in business for a while. I really encourage you to take a few minutes and ask yourself, what does my dream schedule look like? And that includes business time. Like, when would you like to be working? Where would you like to be working? How often can you work every single week? How many hours a week? And then start to mirror a marketing strategy that supports that. So you can start taking those actions toward your visualization, toward your manifestation, and also have a strategy that feels really, really good. And as I mentioned in the beginning, when we were talking about the visualization, a huge piece of your schedule needs to be content, because I say this a lot. You can have the most amazing marketing strategy, whether it's fully SEO, which we love to teach, social media, a blend of both. But at the core of a great marketing strategy is always content, right? We're creating content to then disperse through our marketing strategy. So the thing that is really going to support you, especially if you're limited on time, is choosing a marketing strategy that doesn't require as much content creation, and then B, prioritizing content creation. So whether that's one day a week that you're sitting down to create all of your content, maybe you do what some of my clients do. They're in podcasting or video, and they'll record like a month's worth of content in a few days, and then they have it done and all they have to do is schedule it. I love that strategy. Honestly, I've done it various times in my business. I'm starting to get back into it again with my new camera setup and everything. That strategy is one of my favorites, because then I can have like a content week, which I also coordinate with my cycle. So I'm just like, want to be on camera and like ready to rock and roll. And then the rest of the month, I don't have to create new content, which allows me to then sprinkle in things if I have the time. But again, I'm getting into my strategy, but that's what I would do, right? Starting over, I would absolutely focus on bulk creating my content, whether that was at the beginning of the month or it was weekly, but having that dedicated day, because a lot of people get hung up on the content creation process because they don't have a clear schedule in place. And also, maybe the process that they're trying to implement, the schedule they're trying to implement, just isn't practical for their life, like in all reality. If you can't hire a huge team to disperse your content, to make your content, to edit your content, to put it all out there, like most online entrepreneurs, then you have to adjust your strategy. And that's where SEO comes in. And that's why I'm obsessed with it, because it allows you to adjust your strategy and still get results and still get your brand seen without the daily content. And most of you watching right now probably already know that inside of my academy, I teach you how to do all of this: the branding process, the website process, the systems, and then most importantly, I think, is the marketing process. So creating a marketing strategy that works for you, and then how do you really optimize each of those platforms to their highest potential so that your brand is getting seen when you're not on your laptop. Like today. Today I've been running around. I fit in a live video, which I'm so excited about, but Tuesdays are really busy. I take my son to a class, I do grocery shopping, pick the kid up, come home, do this, do a call, go to another class. Many of you have the exact same schedule. The odds of me, being able to create content on this day every single week is just not going to happen. And so I have to create a strategy that's going to work for me, right? Okay. Any questions about those things? Just want to check in on that. So number one, again, was give yourself a limit of 2 weeks for branding. And number two was think about your ideal schedule and then start creating a business strategy that mirrors that allows that to actually happen. Because I promise you, the more that you can taste that ideal life, you can taste that ideal schedule, the more freaking motivated you will be to build your business so that you can create even more time. Because with increased leads, with increased revenue comes more flexibility, right? We all know that. That's why there's way more hustle and I guess we'll use intenseness in those first few years because the revenue might not be where you ultimately want it to be or desire it to be. All right, number 3. And yeah, I'm also drinking my pumpkin. Look, I know it's not October, but it's fine. It's totally fine. Anybody else obsessed with all things pumpkin? Let me know. Okay, number 3 is that if I were just starting out, I would 100% prioritize video content. Now, some of you are probably like, gosh, I don't want to be on video. There are definitely ways to use video without your face. You can do audiograms. If you have a podcast, you can do stock imagery, you can do stock video. So many different apps allow you to do this. But I think the reality is today, video content out of the gate is going to give you the most exposure up front. And remember, one of the things that we're really wanting to do is get our brand out into the world so that we can then put our messaging out there via our content, via our marketing strategy, and fill in the gaps. Figure out, are there would I say this a different way? Is my client asking questions about something that I could then work into my branding process? Anything like that. And so the method that's going to get you the most eyes is going to be video content. Now, because I believe in an SEO approach, I would 100% start a YouTube channel from day one. I really just think YouTube, in terms of longevity and video content, is where it's at. Like I've said many times, I have video content out there that is getting seen 3 years later, that is driving leads and sales and traffic to my website 3 years later. And so imagine if you were to start with a solid video strategy now on this platform, where you could be in 6 months, a year, so on and so forth. The other reason is you don't have to have a huge following to be successful on the platform. I don't have a ton of subscribers. I think I'm sitting at like 2.5 now or something like that. But I have videos that have 5,000 views, right? 6,000 views and I have videos that have 100 views. So it is what it is. There's a balance. But that's because of SEO. Because of SEO, these videos are discovered even if someone isn't subscribed to me. And so that's what I'm saying. If you're getting started, SEO is a discoverability method for marketing. So people can actually find you. So if you don't have a huge audience, getting on one of these platforms is really, really important. And then there's the other piece of that, right? Short form video is killing it. And it just has been, and it will continue to do it. And I don't think any of us can avoid it. So for me, taking a YouTube video and being able to repurpose that content into short form video to expand my reach just makes the most sense for me, because it's all about repurposing. It's all about taking an existing piece of content that I have and getting it out into the world, increasing the odds that my brand gets seen and therefore paid. And I'm not having to do a ton of extra work. And again, short form video can be used on every platform. And I keep telling people this, and I don't think they believe me, but YouTube, we have YouTube Shorts, right? It's not the most robust. It's definitely not as nice as TikTok, but it is a search platform with short form video, and people are watching these videos. We have Pinterest, video on Pinterest, always doing well, has been doing well. And we love Pinterest because it can link back to your website. And then we have these other platforms, right? We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have social media. So no matter what strategy you're really wanting to tackle, whether it is SEO specific, social specific, or a blend of both, short form video can work for you. And again, if I were starting out, it would 100% would be YouTube content. When I was starting, live video was kind of getting started at the time. And so I was doing video content, and that helped tremendously. Like, I was using video content every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, to create my content, to put it out into the world, to speak to my ideal customer, to attract new people. But I will say that going back, I would have prioritized YouTube because I waited too long to prioritize YouTube. I think I drug my feet a little bit because live video was working, but it doesn't work in the same way anymore. Okay. So again, if you're like, okay, I don't know what type of content to create, what type of medium, YouTube is where it's at. And I think the other sweet spot about that I will say is that you really can create any type of video content for YouTube right now. Like, there was a period of time where it was like short, overly edited, really snappy type of videos that were working well. There was a period of time where it was like long videos, 30 minutes, some of them 40 minutes. Now it could be podcast recorded videos. It could be short 5-minute training videos. It could be 15 to 20-minute videos. It doesn't matter. So you can really find the style that works for you. And the other thing that I'm loving is that you don't have to hire an editor, and it doesn't have to be overly edited content. You can use AI tools like Descript to edit your content and get it out the same day that you record. It can be that easy. So we don't have to make all of these investments in our brand out of the gate when we maybe don't have that to invest in, our creating our content and our distribution, because we can pay $16 to $19 a month to have a platform help us do it. Okay. So again, I'm sharing with you what I would do again, and that for sure would be how I would be distributing my content. And then inside of the academy, I obviously teach you how to take it a step further. And then how do we turn that into a blog post? How do we turn that into a podcast? How do then we create a multi-channel marketing approach? But I really think if video content is available to you, that is where it's at in order to get your brand seen quickly without investing in ads. Okay. All right, number 4. This is a topic that I love talking about. It's all about getting featured. And I have a background in public relations. We have a whole PR module inside of the academy that talks about how to get your brand featured. But this is the low-hanging fruit that I think more entrepreneurs need to be prioritizing at every stage of their business, but especially in the beginning. And I accidentally did this, and I wish I would have dialed it up so much more, because I think it would have paid off even more in the beginning. And I think it's one of the best strategies that is flying under the radar in marketing today and in 2025. And that is getting featured on lower podcast or less popular podcast or less popular news networks. Like, when I talk to my clients a lot, they're like, oh, I want to be on Forbes, or I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be on Business Insider, or I want to be on this giant podcast for their industry. Yes, samesies, right? Like, we all want that. But honestly, the smaller podcasts, the micro podcasts, the micro news, networks for your industry, those have a higher return on your investment in terms of time than the bigger platforms. And I know this to be true because I've done it, right? I've been on Entrepreneur, I've been in Fast Company, I've been on CNBC, I've done that. And I will say that whenever I go on a smaller podcast that maybe like someone in my industry doesn't even know about, like, who knows, maybe they have a listenership of, a couple hundred every single week, I always get a client every single time. Because one, that podcast does such a good job of sharing my brand with other people, because they're new, they're like in it, they're like really using it to grow their business or whatever it is. And they're not like maybe working with a whole team, and they're removed from the promotion or removed from the marketing of it. So they do such an amazing job of promoting me and my brand and my message and getting people to listen to their podcast. So I don't have to do anything but show up, really. Number 2 is that they have a very loyal following, and they trust the person who is in charge of the podcast. And that's true for the big ones as well, but I'm just showing like the connections between the two. Like, you can achieve that on a smaller podcast. And like I said, like, I've been on photography podcasts and would sign a client within a couple days, and we would ask people, how did you discover me? And it was via a podcast. I don't have to pay anything. It takes very little time on my part besides like the pitching and the showing up for the actual interview. And it has a huge ROI, huge ROI. So I think that this is completely under the radar. And there's another reason that I love it. Another reason is because a lot of people don't realize that this process also helps you with your SEO. So this is where I say I fell into it and it really helped me with my SEO in the beginning. But I had a few friends that were like, do you want to be on my podcast? We were in group programs together, right? I'm launching a podcast. Do you want to be on it? And I was like, sure, that sounds good. Or I came across someone's podcast and like listening to it and I pitched myself in the beginning when I had very little credibility, mind you. And they all linked back to my website. Well, after I started doing a few of those are considered backlinks. So the more people that link back to your website, the higher your domain authority. This is something I teach inside of SEO Bootcamp, inside of the Academy. And the higher your domain authority, the easier it is to rank on Google. So it's like a whammy. It's a double whammy, right? You're getting featured on someone else's podcast, which could lead to clients. They're linking and they're doing the marketing for you. They're linking back to your website. That's going to help you overall with your site-wide SEO, which then will help you get discovered on Google. More people need to be focusing on this, and more people need to realize that the good stuff is not with the big giant podcasts and the big giant features. Those are amazing. Don't get me wrong. I've been on a few of them, but even like getting an entrepreneur, like that was a really great authority builder for my audience, but it didn't bring me a ton of new clients, not like a podcast does. So that's a little like mindset shift for you. And it's one of the reasons I love teaching public relations and I love teaching it inside of the Academy. Rochelle says, man, I so don't want that. I would much rather be on a smaller podcast or publishing. Yeah, it's true. Like, I think it just has more of a return on your investment, like I said. Absolutely. And you also, again, we're talking about the marketing, we're talking about getting your brand out into the world. You can flush out a lot of the things that you want to talk about and see how they register with a new audience. It's all an experiment in marketing, which is great. And most of the time, these smaller podcasts, it's like you just need to email them and say, hey, I love your podcast. I love your audience. My audience is similar, or I think your audience would love this. These are some things I'd love to talk about. Would this work for you? Or even doing a podcast swap. Those are really great too. Okay, so yes to PR, yes to pitching, yes to podcasting. Prioritize that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is a lot of people get nervous because they're just starting out. And so when they go to pitch a podcast or something, they're like, oh, I don't have a lot online. And this is why YouTube and having YouTube at your strategy or video in your strategy is so beneficial. Because if you already have a few of those videos and then you go to pitch, you can reference them back to those videos so they can see your speaking style. They can see how you are on camera because so many people film now, that you have basically a portfolio, and how they all intertwine is so beautiful. Like you're now using your YouTube channel to get you featured, to get in front of a new audience. And it's also getting you in front of a new audience on YouTube. Like, this is what I mean by like being really strategic with the way we are showing up and the way that we are building our business. And again, if y'all have any questions, let me know. Marcy says, I am starting a podcast in January. Yay. I love that you're starting a podcast. Amazing. And again, inside of the Academy, I know I keep talking about it, but that's because doors are open. Inside of the Academy, we have an entire module on starting your podcast, an entire module on how to get your podcast started. And we've had so many members who have done it. And they're like, I had my podcast up and running in like 48 hours. Like, it does not have to take a ton of time to create your own podcast. But then again, if we're doing the pitching, that's in there as well. Okay, number 5. Okay, this has to do with your offer. If I were to go back and do it all again, what would I do? I think this might be a little controversial, but we're going to do it. Okay. When I started my business, I started with high ticket. It was high ticket one-on-one. I still believe that that is a great strategy for so many entrepreneurs. Some of you, it won't fit. It won't work with what you're selling or your schedule, right? But for the majority of you, it requires little investment. You don't need a platform to house your materials. You don't need anything besides Google Meet or Zoom and a scheduler, which you should have anyway, right? And a way to accept payment. Like, that's really all you need to get started with one-to-one work. But one thing I was missing that I would change, because I'm focused on SEO, which I wasn't in the beginning of my business. I was using social media. I was using Facebook groups, as we've talked about. The one thing that I would do is I would have a lower priced entry level product. Because what I think this allows you to do is A, get people invested in your brand and in your business if they're not quite ready for the high ticket. It also has been proven in my business and in a lot of my colleagues and mentors that I follow that when someone invests at a low ticket, they are more likely to invest in a high ticket. This isn't always the case, but most of the time we can go back and look, oh, so and so signed up for this one-to-one. Oh, they bought this from me 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or they were in this program or whatever it might be. So if I was just getting started, I would focus on having something higher ticket. And what I mean by higher ticket is over $1,000. Okay. I'm not talking like $10,000. I know that that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm just going to leave it at that. We have a whole offer live stream if y'all want it. Structuring your offers, pricing, all that stuff. But something over $1,000, right, is high ticket. For most of you, one-to-one is going to be the best entry because you don't need a lot. You don't need a lot to make it happen. But for some of you, it might be a course or a program, a group program or something like that. And then lower ticket, I would say, is anything $200 or less. I don't know if I would do honestly, I know if I were just starting out, I wouldn't do a $30 offer. I wouldn't do a $19 offer up front. It would be questionable if I even did a $97 offer. Honestly, I think it'd be like $197 to $1,000 because you don't want the gap to be too extreme. Like you don't want it to be like $12 to like $4,000, right? One, you're not going to make a ton of money off of $12, and then the jump is so big. So having this diversity, I think, is really, really important, especially in 2024 and 2025. I think we're starting to level out in the industry. We had all one-on-one, all high ticket. It was insane, right? Then it dropped down to like low $47. Everything was like $47, $57. It was also insane. That really started to happen right around COVID. Then things started to change and modify a bit. I think it was more courses, and it has been really courses. But we're seeing this in my business where people are craving more of the one-on-one and are willing to pay the high ticket again. So I think having this mix, if you're just starting out, is a really great way to make sure you don't lose people who might be willing to invest at a lower price. And then you also have a way to get someone in the door investing and then moving up. But then you also have the high ticket for anyone who knows that's exactly what they want. Those are the 5 things. I can't believe I did that in 30 minutes. That was impressive for me. Marcy says, do you feel it would be a progression of 97, 297, et cetera, to have a lower ticket at first? Yeah, I think I just answered this on accident, but I wouldn't go lower than 97. Here's the other thing. When you're starting out, you don't want too many products. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they're doing too much out of the gate. You should really have 1, maybe 2 products until you hit 6 figures. I know some people who say until you hit $1 million. Like until that one product is bringing in $1 million, you should not expand. That's pretty intense, I think, for a lot of people, especially if your business isn't your full-time situation. If you're doing, multiple things and you don't have a ton of money to invest up front. But I would say you should not have too much going on before you hit 6 figures. And I really only I had one-to-one and I had a group program. And that's all that I had when I hit 6 figures. And that's what it led me to, right? And because if you do too much, then it can really cloud your messaging and it can really start to cloud your marketing. And that first year, that first, second year, that third year, whatever, to hit 6 figures, that's when you're really tweaking and you're trying to figure that out. Another little bonus for y'all, that testing and tweaking happens every time you up level, right? So like in those first few years, and I'm using 6 figures as an example, that might not be the number that is in your brain as a goal. Put in whatever number is for you. Okay, how we say that? It doesn't have to be 6 figures. It can be whatever's right for you. Whatever that goal is, getting to that point. There's so much testing and tweaking, and getting your brand seen is top tier, the most important thing you need to be doing. Because if your brand's not getting seen, then people can't pay you. If your brand's not getting seen, people can't pay you. But when you're in those first few years, once you get to that 6 figures or whatever that number is, that's when you're like, okay, I'm ready to expand. So there's a lot of repetition in that timeline until you get to that first goal. Then when you're ready for the next goal, guess what happens? You have to experiment again and you have to repeat. Then guess what happens? You want to go to the next goal. Maybe it's $1 million. You have to do the exact same process again. So doing that and really understanding that in those first few years will set you up for success down the line. Absolutely. This is a fun one. Oh, I like this live video. Does anyone have any questions for me? Like I mentioned, I have a strategy call for the Academy coming up in a little bit. So I'm going to get ready for that. Just a reminder for all of you listening, the doors to Authentic Brand Builders, we just changed the name. The Authentic Brand Builders Academy are now open. They are closing on Thursday for the last time this year. It is your opportunity to not only get the framework that I teach, the roadmap to six figures, which includes your branding, it includes your website, it includes your systems, it includes all this marketing lingo and all of the things getting your brand seen that we talked about. And it also talks about just like putting your authenticity into freaking everything that you have. You know what I mean? Like just oozing it into your calls, into your emails, into all of that stuff. But it also includes support because I know that building a business, especially building a business to six figures, can be really lonely and it can be really difficult to remove yourself and look at things subjectively. And that's where these strategy calls that Rochelle said she's going to be on, she's inside of the Academy. That's where these really come in handy because you can have someone look from the outside at your business rather than you just cycling through what ifs, does this right, blah, 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 over and over again. That's where people get stuck, just like we talked about in the branding phase. So if you're interested in learning more, you can just go to brandmary.com/academy. I'll pop it right in there. Again, like I said, the doors are going to be open, but they close on Thursday. And it really is. It's an all-encompassing, this is how you get to six figures in your business. And this is how you do it in the most authentic and sustainable way possible, because that's what we're all about here at Brand Mary. I'm not going to teach you a strategy that I don't think is sustainable. And I'm not going to teach you something that I haven't tested and proven and taught to hundreds of other entrepreneurs. The framework that we teach inside of the Academy has actually served thousands of entrepreneurs because this exact framework I have been teaching for 7 years in my business. Okay. Yay. Okay, Rochelle, I will see you on the call. I'm so excited about that. Does anyone have any other questions for me while I am live? Just want to make sure before I peace out. You can also chat with me directly on the Academy page. So if you go to brandmary.com/academy, there's a chat where you can send me a video, an audio, a text, whatever, ask your questions. If you have any specific questions about your business, what you're looking for, the level of support, any of that, I'm totally here to support you with that. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions. Thank you for joining me live. I so appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And if you're not already in the Academy, I really encourage you to head to brandmary.com/academy, check it out, read about it, send me a message, and let's see if it's the right fit for you and your business. All right, I will talk to you soon. And I'll see some of you in like 30 minutes on the call. Okay, bye.